Welcome back to Stoic Spirit, and welcome to part 2 of our series, 5 Secrets You Should Keep to Yourself If You Don't Want to Get Killed, Stoic Philosophy. Today, we continue building the quiet strength that protects your peace, freedom, and dignity. In part 1, we revealed 5 powerful secrets you must never share, covering your finances, your location, personal security measures, family weaknesses, and identity details. You learned why keeping quiet isn't about living in fear, but about living with wisdom and control. But have you ever found yourself in a situation where you spoke openly about conflicts, shared regrets from your past, or confidently announced ambitious plans, only to regret your openness later? It's uncomfortable, isn't it? That instant sense of vulnerability, the silent worry of who might use your own words against you. Many of us have been there, unaware that we're quietly inviting trouble into our lives. You're not alone in this. Most people unintentionally share private tensions, connections to influential figures, past mistakes, future ambitions, or even moments of reckless overconfidence, without realizing the dangers involved. Fortunately, Stoic philosophy offers practical insights to regain your power and prevent harm by choosing your words with careful intention. In this video, we're diving deeper into 5 more subtle yet critical secrets you must protect, ones that, if mishandled, could threaten your safety, respect, and reputation. You'll discover specific strategies inspired by ancient Stoics like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, combined with modern psychology to build unshakable self-control and discretion. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Your greatest power lies not in what you reveal, but in what you wisely keep to yourself. If you believe in living with strength and wisdom, don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what insights from part 1 impacted you the most. Number 6. Do not disclose conflicts or tensions you have with others. We all face conflicts from time to time. It's an inevitable part of life. Maybe it's friction with a coworker, tension within your family, or a disagreement with a friend that left you frustrated. During these moments, it's common to feel the urge to vent, to openly share your grievances, express your annoyance, or seek validation from others about your side of the story. But as natural as this impulse is, it can quietly lead you into a dangerous territory, one you might deeply regret entering. Recognizing the signs that you're oversharing conflicts or tensions is crucial. You may notice yourself consistently bringing up unresolved arguments in casual conversations, or repeatedly mentioning conflicts you have with certain individuals, even to people who aren't involved. Perhaps you've posted subtle or not so subtle complaints on social media, hinting at disagreements without mentioning names directly. It might manifest as sarcastic comments or jokes intended to expose the faults or weaknesses of others involved in the conflict. Even discussions framed as seeking advice can spiral into revealing too much, especially when done in public settings or with acquaintances who have unclear motives. These seemingly minor disclosures may appear harmless, but each one quietly chips away at your personal privacy and exposes your vulnerabilities to the world. The consequences of openly sharing your conflicts can be unexpectedly severe and widespread. For instance, openly airing grievances can escalate the conflict, making a minor disagreement become deeply entrenched hostility. Conflicts that might have resolved quietly, privately, and peacefully often intensify when other parties become involved or when individuals feel publicly humiliated or defensive. Moreover, the reputation damage can be substantial. Regularly complaining or highlighting disputes makes you appear difficult, overly critical, or untrustworthy. People around you, including coworkers, friends, or even supervisors, may quietly distance themselves, sensing the negativity or drama around you. In professional settings, oversharing tensions can severely limit opportunities for advancement, collaboration, and leadership, because others start questioning your emotional maturity and discretion. Beyond these immediate and tangible risks, there is a subtle psychological harm involved. Every time you publicly discuss your conflicts or disagreements, you reinforce a mindset of victimhood and external blame. You place yourself in a position of dependence, relying on the sympathy, validation, or opinions of others to find emotional closure or satisfaction. Over time, this can weaken your ability to resolve conflicts independently and calmly, damaging your emotional resilience and self-control. Stoic philosophy provides valuable guidance for managing this sensitive aspect of personal interactions. According to the Stoics, genuine strength lies not in broadcasting your conflicts, but in quietly resolving them through internal discipline and clear-minded judgment. Seneca advised, "A wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he has not." Applying this wisdom practically, we understand that our personal conflicts are best resolved privately, through measured, rational communication and patient reflection, not through impulsive public declarations or gossip. Stoicism emphasizes that true control and dignity come from the discipline to keep certain matters confidential, allowing disagreements to resolve without spectacle or unnecessary drama. Let's consider a real-world example to illustrate the importance of this approach. Michael, a friend I met several years ago, worked as an IT manager for a rapidly growing tech firm. Michael had ongoing tension with a senior colleague named Greg, stemming from conflicting management styles and frequent miscommunications. Frustrated by a particular disagreement one day, Michael vented his anger and dissatisfaction during lunch breaks and casual office conversations, revealing detailed grievances about Greg's decisions and leadership. He even posted vague, passive-aggressive comments online, hoping for support and validation from his wider social circle. Michael soon noticed subtle changes in the workplace atmosphere. Colleagues who had previously respected him started avoiding deep conversations or sensitive topics. His superiors, once seeing him as a potential leader, began passing him over for opportunities involving sensitive collaboration or higher responsibilities. Eventually, Michael learned that his oversharing had created an impression of emotional instability and indiscretion. The conflict that could have been resolved privately between him and Greg had now taken on a public dimension, affecting not only his professional relationships, but also his own peace of mind and reputation. To avoid falling into a similar trap, there are clear, actionable strategies you can adopt from the Stoic approach. First, practice intentional silence when conflicts arise. Pause before sharing the details of your tensions with others, particularly in emotionally charged moments. Use this moment of silence to reflect deeply, asking yourself, will sharing this conflict help resolve it or only escalate it? If the answer isn't clearly positive, then discretion and privacy are your best allies. Secondly, choose carefully whom you trust with your personal grievances. If you must seek advice or perspective, do so privately and selectively. Limit your confidences to people who are genuinely impartial, discreet, and trusted, ideally someone outside your direct social or professional circle. This not only ensures unbiased advice, but also safeguards your reputation and dignity from public scrutiny or misinterpretation. Third, approach conflicts with emotional discipline and rational detachment. Stoics teach us the importance of examining our emotions critically before acting upon them. Analyze your feelings privately, considering their root causes. By taking a logical, balanced perspective, you can clearly see solutions and strategies without feeling the need for external validation or public acknowledgement. Training yourself to maintain this rational detachment will improve your ability to resolve conflicts efficiently and privately. Additionally, make it a habit to resolve disputes directly with the parties involved, rather than through intermediaries or public forums. Face-to-face communication fosters clarity, empathy, and mutual respect. It's more difficult, but ultimately far more rewarding, helping build stronger relationships and mutual understanding. Returning briefly to Michael's example, had he practiced these Stoic-inspired strategies, his conflict with Greg might have unfolded differently. Rather than sharing his grievances publicly, Michael could have paused and reflected privately, approached Greg directly in a calm and constructive conversation, or sought advice discreetly from a neutral mentor. This disciplined approach could have resolved their tension quietly, maintaining Michael's professional reputation and enhancing his emotional strength. Remember, conflict and tension are unavoidable aspects of human relationships. What defines your character and ensures your safety and dignity is how wisely and discreetly you handle them. Choosing silence over impulsive speech, private resolution over public declarations, and rational discipline over emotional reactions protects your peace, strengthens your reputation, and deepens your emotional resilience. After all, the conflicts you overcome privately are often the very experiences that shape you into a stronger, wiser individual. Number 7. Do not brag about connections to powerful people. There's something incredibly tempting about mentioning that you know someone powerful. Maybe it's a CEO, a government official, a celebrity, or an influential leader in your industry. It can feel like carrying a secret weapon, a badge of validation that subtly says, "I matter because I'm close to someone who matters." But as harmless as it seems to name drop or boast about these connections, doing so creates vulnerabilities that most people never see coming until it's too late. You can recognize this behavior in small but telling ways. Maybe you casually bring up a powerful friend's name during a conversation, even when it's not relevant. Perhaps you hint at insider knowledge, drop references to exclusive events you've attended, or mention powerful acquaintances to impress new contacts. You might even feel a small rush of pride when people react with surprise or admiration. Yet behind that fleeting satisfaction, there are cracks forming in your armor. Cracks that others can and will exploit if given the chance. The dangers of bragging about connections to powerful people are deeper and wider than they first appear. At the surface, it erodes your credibility. People quickly sense when someone relies too heavily on who they know rather than what they can do. Instead of being seen as competent and capable in your own right, you become perceived as someone who leans on external validation, a person whose value is borrowed, not earned. This subtle shift in perception can close doors rather than open them. More dangerously, exposing your powerful connections paints a target on your back. Opportunists, manipulators, and even adversaries may see you as a tool to reach your influential contacts. Suddenly, you find yourself fielding requests, favors, and subtle pressures to introduce, recommend, or put in a good word. Worse, if anything ever goes wrong in those powerful circles, if the connection becomes strained, if the powerful person falls from grace, you risk getting dragged into the fallout simply by association. Your name can become entangled in controversies that have nothing to do with you, simply because you once advertised your proximity. And there's another, less obvious danger. The powerful people themselves notice. Those who have truly earned influence are often highly sensitive to loyalty, discretion, and judgment. They value those who can be trusted to remain silent about private dealings. If you casually discuss your relationship with them, or worse, leverage it for your own social standing, you quietly signal that you cannot be trusted. Powerful individuals didn't reach their status by trusting everyone. They are wary by necessity. A loose tongue can cost you not just a connection, but also future opportunities you never even knew were on the table. The Stoics offer us a powerful antidote to this temptation. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about others." It is not for you to judge their actions. Applied here, the wisdom is simple. Focus on your own path. Build your own strength. Your value must be intrinsic, not tied to your associations. Stoicism teaches us to cultivate self-reliance and inner dignity, not to seek external validation through proximity to others. Now, imagine for a moment that you have a real connection with someone powerful. Maybe you interned with a top executive, or a senator once mentored you early in your career. You're proud of it, and rightly so. But one day, in an effort to impress new colleagues or clients, you casually mention this relationship. You hint that you could make things happen or open certain doors because of who you know. For a while, people seem impressed and the attention feels rewarding. But slowly, dynamics start to shift. Colleagues begin to wonder whether your success is truly your own. Competitors start positioning you as someone who got ahead through favoritism, not merit. Requests pile up from acquaintances seeking access to your powerful contact. Word eventually gets back to the powerful figure themselves, who now sees you as a potential liability, a breach of discretion they cannot afford. Before you even realize it, the trust is broken, the doors close quietly, and the damage to your reputation becomes painfully permanent. How can you avoid this quiet self-destruction? First, commit to internal validation. Let your accomplishments, your integrity, and your skills speak louder than any name you could ever drop. When you succeed, ensure that your success is attributed to your own efforts, not your associations. Remind yourself regularly, respect earned through merit is worth infinitely more than admiration won through borrowed prestige. Second, when speaking about your career, your achievements, or your ambitions, keep the focus squarely on your journey. If a powerful connection played a role, acknowledge it humbly only if necessary, but never center your story around it. Gratitude and humility build quiet credibility. Boasting and name-dropping erode it. Third, practice active discretion. Cultivate the ability to hold information close, to guard relationships carefully. Treat every powerful connection you have as if it were a sacred trust, not a trophy for public display, but a private honor to be protected. In doing so, you send a powerful, silent signal to the world that you are someone who can be trusted with influence, someone who understands the value of loyalty and restraint. Additionally, embrace the Stoic mindset of focusing only on what you can control. You cannot control how impressive your connections seem to others, but you can control how you present yourself. You can choose to build a reputation founded on substance, discipline, and strength, qualities that no external association can enhance or diminish. Returning to our earlier imagined scenario, had you exercised these Stoic strategies, the story would have been different. Instead of mentioning your powerful mentor in casual conversations, you would have focused on your own achievements, allowing the strength of your character and competence to earn respect naturally. Instead of inviting attention based on borrowed prestige, you would have drawn others to you through authenticity and quiet excellence. And your relationship with that powerful individual would have remained intact, rooted in trust, loyalty, and mutual respect. In a world obsessed with appearances and status, the quiet power of discretion is rare and all the more valuable. Resist the urge to broadcast your connections. Protect them as you would protect your own honor. Build your life so solidly that you never need to lean on anyone else's name to validate your own worth. Because the respect that matters, the respect that endures, is never handed to you by association. It is earned, step by step, by who you choose to become when no one else is watching. Number 8, do not share information about personal past mistakes or regrets. Everyone carries past mistakes. Some are small, an impulsive decision, a missed opportunity, while others cut deeper, leaving scars we spend years learning to live with. Sharing these experiences can feel cathartic, even empowering, especially when surrounded by people who seem supportive. Yet what feels healing in the moment can quietly become dangerous if the wrong ears are listening. You can recognize this pattern in subtle ways. Maybe you find yourself casually admitting past regrets during a conversation to seem more relatable. Perhaps in an effort to inspire or connect, you share a story about a time you made a poor judgment, failed spectacularly, or hurt someone unintentionally. It often starts innocently. After all, society encourages vulnerability, teaches us that openness builds trust. And to some extent, it can. But repeated sharing of past mistakes, especially in mixed company or public settings, plants seeds that you can no longer control once they're spoken aloud. The dangers hidden in these admissions are often underestimated. When you publicly reveal your flaws, you give others a powerful tool. Not everyone, but enough people who will remember your vulnerabilities when it suits them. Over time, those past mistakes can be exaggerated, twisted, or reframed to serve someone else's narrative. A minor professional misstep becomes proof of incompetence. A youthful mistake becomes a character flaw. A regret you spoke about openly can be weaponized to question your integrity, your loyalty, even your basic trustworthiness. And it doesn't end with reputation damage. In personal relationships, too much disclosure of past regrets can shift the balance of power. Friends or acquaintances who once respected you might quietly begin to pity you, or worse, use your admissions against you when conflicts arise. Even if your present character is strong, even if you've grown far beyond those past mistakes, the shadow cast by old admissions can be difficult to erase in the minds of others. Stoic philosophy teaches a different, wiser way to handle the weight of our regrets. Epictetus reminds us, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. A Stoic recognizes that past mistakes are not for public consumption. They are private teachers, meant to refine the soul, not decorations for others to judge or misinterpret. True wisdom is internal. It grows quietly, silently, shaping your character without the need for external validation. Imagine for a moment that you once shared a personal regret openly, a bad financial decision you made early in your career, or a broken friendship you blamed yourself for. You trusted someone enough to tell them the whole story, believing it was safe. But months later, you learn that person used your confession to discredit you. They whispered half-truths to others, implying you were reckless with money or unreliable with loyalty. Maybe they brought it up in a professional setting, casting doubt on your ability to handle new opportunities. You feel betrayed, exposed, and powerless to control the narrative they've created. One built on a grain of truth you willingly handed over. Situations like these are painful, but preventable. The first step toward protection is recognizing that your past mistakes and regrets are not public property. They belong to you, and they should be shared sparingly, if at all. Reserve them for moments where trust has been earned, not simply assumed. Before disclosing anything sensitive about your past, ask yourself, will this strengthen or weaken the way I'm seen? If there's any doubt, it's wiser to stay silent. Another essential strategy is reframing how you view your past mistakes. Rather than thinking of them as stories that need to be told to earn empathy, view them as silent building blocks of strength. Your mistakes have already served their purpose. They've taught you. Broadcasting them doesn't add value to your life, it only creates new vulnerabilities. This mindset shift keeps you focused on your present and future growth, rather than trapping you in an endless cycle of reliving and re-explaining the past. It also helps to practice self-discipline in emotionally charged conversations. Often, the urge to share regrets comes during moments of deep connection or emotional exposure. In those moments, train yourself to pause. Feel the pull to open up, but choose restraint instead. The ability to hold your own story sacred, to guard it with dignity, is a true sign of strength, not coldness. Stoic philosophy calls us to master ourselves first, and that mastery includes mastering our words. Another practical tactic is to preemptively set mental boundaries before entering conversations where vulnerability might surface. Decide beforehand which topics are absolutely off-limits. If the conversation drifts toward personal history, steer it gently back to neutral ground or speak in general terms without revealing sensitive details. You can express understanding, empathy, and even solidarity with others without offering your own life as an open book. In returning to the earlier example, had you followed these Stoic strategies, the betrayal might never have occurred. Instead of sharing your financial misstep or broken friendship openly, you might have simply acknowledged that everyone faces challenges without offering specifics. You would have kept your dignity intact, prevented your vulnerability from being misused, and preserved control over your own narrative. In doing so, you not only protect yourself from external harm, but also cultivate deeper internal resilience, an unshakable strength that no rumor, no distortion, and no betrayal can touch. The truth is, the people who deserve to know your past mistakes are the ones who have proven, over time, that they will not use them against you. And even then, some parts of your story are best kept within the private walls of your own reflection. Your mistakes made you stronger, but they don't owe anyone an explanation. Protect your past like you protect your future. With care, with discretion, and with an unshakable commitment to your own inner peace. Number 9. Do not reveal your future ambitions or major life plans. There's a certain thrill in sharing your dreams. Announcing that you're planning to start your own business, move to a new city, or embark on a major life transformation feels empowering, like declaring to the world that you're destined for something greater. In our culture of openness, where dreams and aspirations are often broadcast proudly across social media or whispered in moments of excitement, it feels natural to reveal where you're headed. But revealing your future ambitions too soon, or to the wrong people, can quietly dismantle everything you're trying to build. You might recognize this habit in subtle but telling ways. Perhaps you find yourself casually mentioning your career plans to colleagues over lunch, or talking about your intention to leave your current job during a casual chat with a friend. Maybe you excitedly share your plans for a new startup, a move abroad, or a major creative project at a family gathering or networking event. Even when you ask someone to keep it between us, the moment those words leave your mouth, control over that information leaves with them. Each time you disclose your ambitions before they are solidified, you risk allowing external forces to tamper with your internal journey. The dangers of sharing future plans prematurely are surprisingly deep. First, there's the very real risk of sabotage, intentional or unintentional. Some people, driven by jealousy, insecurity, or their own self-interest, may subtly undermine your efforts. Others may not wish you harm, but through gossip or careless talk, can spread your private intentions to people who might. Plans can collapse under the weight of too much attention, especially in environments where competition is fierce and loyalty is shallow. Second, revealing your ambitions can subject you to unnecessary pressure. When you announce bold intentions, others begin watching, evaluating your progress, questioning your methods, even silently hoping for your failure to make themselves feel better. This external pressure can distort your focus, making you more reactive to judgment and less anchored in your own disciplined path. And there's another, more insidious danger. When you talk about your dreams too much, you trick your mind into feeling as if you've already achieved something. Studies in psychology have shown that speaking extensively about goals can create a false sense of progress, reducing the energy and urgency needed to actually accomplish them. In other words, talking about your ambitions can quietly satisfy your need for recognition without ever demanding the action required for true achievement. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology gave it a name. They taught the principle of quiet preparation, building greatness in silence, unseen by the world until the results could not be denied. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." Applied here, it means stop announcing what you intend to do. Start doing it quietly, without applause or expectation of recognition. Let your actions, not your words, reveal who you are becoming. Consider a real-world story, drawn from a comment someone once shared. A woman, let's call her Rachel, was planning to leave her corporate job after receiving her year-end bonus. Excited and anxious, she confided in a close colleague she trusted, asking her to keep it a secret. Rachel believed she was sharing in confidence, strengthening their bond. But her colleague, whether out of misplaced concern or subtle resentment, told others at the office. Word spread quickly. Eventually, Rachel's boss heard about her intentions. Under the pretense of company restructuring, he found a way to fire her before the bonus payout date. In the end, Rachel lost not just the bonus, but also the strategic timing and dignity she had worked so carefully to manage. Rachel's story is a harsh but necessary reminder. Even people you trust, even people with good intentions, can mishandle your secrets. The moment you externalize your ambitions, you give others power over a part of your life that should remain firmly within your control. How do you avoid falling into this trap? First, practice radical self-containment. When you have a goal or an ambition, nurture it internally like a precious seed. Protect it from premature exposure to harsh winds of gossip, judgment, or competition. Talk less. Work more. Let your energy flow into building rather than explaining. Second, cultivate selective disclosure. If you absolutely must discuss plans for legal advice, business partnerships, or critical strategic reasons, choose individuals based on proven loyalty and discretion, not based on proximity or casual trust. Assume that any information you share could eventually spread, and share accordingly. Speak only what would not harm you if repeated. Third, focus on delivering outcomes rather than narrating intentions. The more you train yourself to reveal progress only after it has materialized, the more you build an identity rooted in results rather than promises. This not only protects your journey, but amplifies your credibility and power when you do finally reveal your achievements. Finally, embrace the Stoic mindset fully. Understand that external recognition is irrelevant to the work of self-improvement and achievement. What matters is your discipline, your persistence, and your internal satisfaction with the path you are walking, not how others perceive or applaud it. Returning to Rachel's situation, Had she embraced these principles, the outcome might have been dramatically different. Instead of sharing her intentions with a colleague, she could have maintained professional silence, focusing fully on her duties until the time came to exit on her own terms. By keeping her ambitions private, she would have preserved her bonus, her reputation, and most importantly, her autonomy over the timing and conditions of her next move. Your future deserves better than to be placed in the uncertain hands of others. Build quietly. Move strategically. Speak only when the time is right, when your success is undeniable and needs no explanation. Because the dreams that are truly yours, the ones you build with your own hands and heart, deserve to be protected with every ounce of wisdom and discretion you can summon. Number 10. Do not share confidential information about your work or projects. We've all experienced moments of excitement at work, perhaps when starting a new project, discovering innovative ideas, or learning details about upcoming developments that aren't yet public. The thrill of knowing something exclusive can be intense. It's natural to feel the urge to discuss your work, especially when it seems impressive or meaningful. Yet, what feels harmless or even beneficial at the time can quickly turn into a serious mistake, one that jeopardizes your career and reputation. You might notice this behavior manifest subtly in everyday interactions. Maybe you're at lunch with friends or colleagues from other companies and casually mention details about a new, unannounced product your team is developing. Perhaps you share insights about strategic initiatives in your department during social gatherings or networking events to appear knowledgeable or influential. Even discussing internal financial forecasts, key personnel changes, or sensitive customer data with family or close friends can inadvertently occur, especially when you feel safe or relaxed. These disclosures often start innocently, sometimes as a way to demonstrate your value, impress others, or just share your enthusiasm. But each small detail you disclose outside the appropriate circles accumulates, creating potential vulnerabilities. The consequences of revealing confidential work information can be catastrophic. First, there is the obvious threat to your organization. Information leaked prematurely can harm business strategies, giving competitors an unfair advantage. For instance, competitors might launch similar products or services earlier, undermining months or even years of your team's effort and investment. Sensitive details falling into the wrong hands can lead to financial losses, legal liabilities, damaged customer trust, and severe reputational harm for the company. But it's not just your organization that suffers. Your personal and professional reputation becomes tarnished as well. Once you're known, intentionally or not, as someone who can't keep confidential information private, trust in your judgment rapidly erodes. Supervisors and senior leaders begin questioning your reliability and discretion. Colleagues might become reluctant to share critical information with you, fearing their conversations might not remain private. This creates an environment of suspicion and isolation around you, severely limiting your career growth and professional opportunities. Even worse, there are often legal and ethical implications tied to confidentiality agreements you've signed when starting your job. Violating these agreements by discussing confidential projects or strategies outside the designated boundaries can lead to disciplinary actions, job termination, or even legal prosecution. One careless remark could potentially destroy your career trajectory, leaving you with a professional stigma that's challenging to overcome. The ancient Stoics deeply valued discretion as a cornerstone of character and inner strength. Seneca famously stated, "If you would keep a secret from an enemy, tell it not to a friend." The Stoics teach that the real power lies in discipline, silence, and self-restraint. Maintaining confidentiality isn't simply about company loyalty. It's about integrity, discipline, and the power of controlling one's speech and impulses. The true Stoic knows that discretion is a quiet but essential strength, deeply connected to personal responsibility and honor. Let's place you, for a moment, directly into a hypothetical yet realistic situation. You've been working diligently on a groundbreaking project at your firm, something innovative and potentially game-changing in your industry. In your excitement, you casually mention specific details to a friend at a casual gathering, assuming your information is safe and harmless. What you didn't consider is that your friend mentioned the project details in passing to someone else who works for a competitor. Within weeks, your company discovers that the competitor is launching a remarkably similar project, undermining months of your team's dedicated effort. Internal investigations reveal the source of the leak, and all evidence points directly back to you. Suddenly, you're facing severe professional consequences, including potential termination and permanent damage to your professional reputation. All of this from one seemingly harmless moment of excitement and pride. This kind of scenario illustrates the vital importance of strict confidentiality. To prevent such damaging outcomes, developing specific strategies and habits can help immensely. First, establish clear mental boundaries regarding work-related information. Before sharing anything related to your job or projects, pause and consciously ask yourself, is this confidential? Could revealing this harm my organization, my colleagues, or myself? If there's even the slightest doubt, the safest and most honorable path is silence. Second, practice deliberate compartmentalization. Keep your professional information strictly within professional boundaries. Separate your work life from your social life clearly and deliberately. For instance, avoid discussing specific project details, business strategies, or internal decisions, even with close family members or friends. Instead, use general language to discuss work, ensuring you convey enthusiasm without providing details. You might say something like, "We're working on some exciting new things," or "There's a lot happening right now that I'm passionate about," without divulging any specifics. Third, master the art of graceful deflection. When others inquire about sensitive projects, respond politely but firmly with vague answers. For example, you might simply say, "I'd love to discuss it, but it's confidential," or "We'll all see soon enough," delivered with a friendly smile. This approach protects sensitive information while preserving relationships and your own professional reputation. Fourth, proactively educate yourself on your company's confidentiality guidelines and protocols. Make sure you thoroughly understand your obligations under non-disclosure agreements or internal confidentiality policies. Regularly refresh your knowledge and actively apply these rules to your daily interactions. By being proactive, you significantly minimize the risk of accidental disclosure and demonstrate true professionalism and responsibility. Finally, internalize the Stoic principle of controlled speech through daily mindfulness. Remind yourself regularly that genuine respect and success are not achieved through casual bragging or careless talk, but through discipline, discretion, and responsible behavior. Over time, you will build a personal brand of reliability and trustworthiness, qualities that naturally open more doors professionally and personally than any premature disclosure ever could. Returning briefly to the imagined scenario, if you had applied these Stoic principles of confidentiality and discipline, the outcome would have been dramatically different. Your groundbreaking project would have remained safe, your organization's advantage intact, and your professional reputation secure. Instead of a disaster, you would have emerged from the project successfully, trusted by leadership, respected by colleagues, and recognized as someone who can be entrusted with sensitive responsibilities. Remember, protecting confidential information isn't simply about rules or protocols. It's about honor, integrity, and wisdom. Guard your words as carefully as you guard your ambitions. Your future success depends on the trust others place in you, and that trust must always be earned through disciplined, responsible silence. Protecting yourself begins with protecting your words. Today, we've uncovered 5 more crucial secrets you should guard carefully: conflicts, connections, past regrets, future ambitions, and confidential work projects. Remember, true strength and wisdom lie not in how much you share, but in how wisely you manage your silence. If you found resonance in these Stoic insights, don't forget to subscribe to Stoic Spirit, where we continue exploring powerful wisdom for self-improvement and personal growth. I genuinely encourage you to share your story in the comments. Have you ever faced difficult consequences because you shared too much? Your experience could be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Together, let's keep building a community that values thoughtful discretion, inner discipline, and quiet strength. Remember, your words hold immense power. Use them wisely, keep them safe, and let your actions speak louder than your words ever could. Stay strong, stay wise, and I'll see you again soon.